I think everyone in this room has heard of the famous words climate change. For my generations, those in our late 20s and even younger ones, it's been like the constant backdrop of environmental doom. Rising sea levels, increasing temperatures, flooding cities. It's been like the soundtracks of our lives. And yes, we do know what are the solutions that we should embrace. Reduce, reuse, recycle, lower our carbon footprint. But my question all along has always been, why does it feel like we're just fighting a losing battle? Why does it feel like we're merely playing defense and slowing down the inevitable? They've been filling us with these images of burning fires, melting glaciers, all these overwhelming problems that leave us with a sense of hopelessness. And here's what I think. They've wanted us to focus too much on what we have lost, that we had no time to see what there's left here to fight for. So today, I want to show you something that is definitely worth fighting for. So what if I told you that the solution to reversing climate change, not just mitigating, but reversing climate change, lies in South America, in a place that I'm sure you've all heard of, but only few truly understand? Do you recognize this country in red? If you don't, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with your high school geography. That's because this is not a country. This is actually the Amazon Basin, and it's shared between 8 countries. This vast interconnected ecosystem does not recognize these lines in this map or these borders. They were just drawn by man. This ecosystem works as one whole biome. It spans over 7 million square kilometers. That's almost the size of Europe. You can actually fit here 2 Indias, or if you want, 169 Switzerlands. So think about it for just a second. 169 Switzerlands of the richest biodiversity on Earth. A single place massive enough to regulate global temperatures and to produce 20% of the oxygen we breathe every day. So yes, that might ring a bell. It is the lung of the world, but the Amazon is far more than just that catchy metaphor. It also holds 20% of the world's fresh waters, 60% of our world's tropical forests, and 10% of all the world's animal and plant species. It is actually a time machine because the Amazon is the only natural ecosystem with the capability of absorbing over 2 billion tons of CO2 annually. That is around 5% of global emissions. The problem? The problem is that we're really, really close to losing it forever. This is called the tipping point. Some scientists say that if deforestation reaches a certain level, then the damage is too great to be fixed. Currently, some researchers and some studies say that the Amazon rainforest has already been deforested between 17 to 20%. And the tipping point is reached if 25% of deforestation happens. So yeah, we're pretty close to it. Some scientists say it might happen in the next couple of years. Some others, less optimistic, say it can happen this same year. What we do know, if this happens, the rainforest will lose its capabilities as a rainforest as a whole, making it change to a savanna-like ecosystem, meaning it would not be able to absorb CO2 at all, and it can actually start releasing CO2. So I think I've already told you 3 pretty good reasons to protect the Amazon. First, it is a time machine. Second, it is a water engine. Third, it is the most biodiverse place on Earth. But I'll give you a 4th. It is home. Over 30 million indigenous people live scattered through the Amazon. They are the true protectors of the forests. For them, the forest is way more than just a time machine or a water engine. For them, it's culture, it's knowledge, it's their religion, it's their entire identity. It is widely known that deforestation rates are significantly lower in indigenous managed territories, because for them, the forest is not a resource to extract. It is their house and it is their home. I got the privilege and honor of being born in Caracas, Venezuela. Venezuela is one of the 8 countries that shares the Amazon. And I was also raised by my grandmother, whose grandparents were from a Pemon indigenous community in Venezuela, in the Amazon rainforest. So I grew up with all these beautiful stories of this magical forest that breathes, that speaks, that gives, and that takes. They were the love stories of my childhood. My grandmother speaks about it with such a happiness and such a love, and she cherishes this place where her grandparents grew, but she has actually never set a foot in. So I've dedicated most of my professional career to understand why. Why hasn't she gone back to the place that she talks with such a filled heart? The reason is because the forest that breathes, that speaks, that gives, and that takes does not exist anymore. Its rivers now run full of mercury, illegal mines carve open the earth, and indigenous people have been violently displaced, killed, and silenced. This is now called the Orinoco Mining Arc in Venezuela. Its extension is around 112,000 square kilometers. That is the size of Portugal, more or less. And in 2016, it was established by the government as a purely mining zone. The consequences, it is now one of the most dangerous places on Earth. Here, criminal gangs, corrupt officials, and serious organized crime are continuously extracting the earth, and they have created one of the biggest ecocides and humanitarian crises in the entire world. Just to give you one example out of so many, this happened a couple of weeks ago. The Yecuana indigenous community in the Venezuelan Amazon expelled illegal miners from their territory in an attempt to protect the forest. The response? It was brutal. Illegal miners burned down all their village and all their houses. This happened literally 2 weeks ago, and it was raised by 1 or 2 international NGOs, but it did not make it to local media, and it did not make it to international media. Because no one's speaking about this. No one's talking about the people who are actually giving their lives to defend this forest that is the same forest that makes sure we have fresh oxygen every single day. And if we want to talk about deforestation, and if we want to avoid the tipping point, we necessarily need to call it by its name. This is environmental crime. And this is a vast network that is spanning all the Amazon rainforest through illegal mining, illegal logging, land grabbing, drug trafficking, and human trafficking. It is the 3rd most lucrative illicit activity in the world. And I don't know if you see it here, but this seems pretty organized. These criminal networks are very well organized because they cooperate with each other. Drug routes, they don't see borders. Criminal networks, they don't see borders. Money laundering, it does not see any borders, but sadly, governments do. Amazonian nations are not working together to find one single solution for this. Each country looks at its own territories, at its own problems, and are failing to see this problem as just one. This is why I've dedicated most of my recent career on finding ways that we can inform policymakers and we can push them to find not 8 different solutions, but one for environmental crime. I've dedicated the past months in working on a tool, for example, and a georeferenced map that will be able to show policymakers and decision makers in real-time data and satellite monitoring what's going on in the Amazon. Thanks to the past 2 years that I've spent in Duke, I've been able to improve these methodologies, learn programming, coding, and all these different tools that will help me keep informing policymakers so that they see and they have one single platform that will be available online very soon, that this is a problem that they need to solve together. Because if they don't, then criminals will always be 2 steps ahead of them. So the mechanisms are already in place. We have the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization, which is the only organization that comprises the 8 Amazonian nations. And it is working in South America. They actually, in 2023, signed the Basin Declaration saying that security must be one of the first concerns of the region in the Amazon and to protect the Amazon. They're going to have a 2nd presidential summit now in August. And moreover, in November, COP30, which is the UN's climate change conference, is also going to take place in the Amazon, in Belém, Brazil. These are two huge platforms that are going to gather the leaders of the world, which I'm planning to show my tool, but this is the space where they need to sit together and find one solution for this problem that conveys us all. So you might be thinking now, right now sitting, what can I do to help? And I'll give you a two-layered solution, a two-scale solution of things that you can start doing as quickly as tomorrow or the next time you go grocery shopping. Every time you buy coffee, chocolate, or flowers, make sure these products have some sort of certification or stamp that they are environmentally friendly. This Rainforest Alliance, the little green frog, certifies that it did not damage the Amazon. You can find it in your closest grocery stores, and this is a little step that we can take. Is this enough? No. We need to keep pushing for more due diligence to make sure that the supply chains and the products that we are buying are clean and they are not further contributing to these crimes. But then the second solution, and my call to action today is, to the young people sitting here today, I know these are overwhelming problems, and for too long we've been in the sidelines of the important discussions that actually include topics as our future. We need to talk about this enough until it is impossible to ignore. We need to push policymakers and decision makers to look at the map, to look at the big picture, and to see that there's only one way to solving such a complicated network, and that is through cooperation. Because what we do know is that these events that are happening this year will define what happens with the Amazon. This is the year where we decide and we define whether we lose it forever or we make it thrive for generations to come. Thank you.